This program was recorded at the Florida State University Alumni Center in Tallahassee. And now, to introduce the program, here's Economic Club of Florida President Marjorie Turnbull.
Our next program will be Thursday, August 17th, and we will feature Paul Anderson, who is the President and CEO at the Port of Tampa Bay. A chance to find out what's going on in one of our major ports and the ports around Florida. I would like now to ask our sustaining members who are so instrumental in having the great speakers we have and the additional financial support of the club, I would ask that you now stand so we can recognize you. And I would now call on Lo Bealby, our membership chair, for a few words about membership.
Thank you, Marjorie. So I have the honor of introducing the latest and the newest members of our club. If you're with us today, I ask you to please stand and be recognized. Erica Hagan, Jennifer Humayan, Al Latimer. Oh, I'm batting zero so far. Greg Noonan, Ben Pingree, Carrie Post, and Monty Stark. Oh, thank you. Now for some exciting news, too. Thank you, Carrie. Last month, you recall, we hosted for the first time Bring Prospective members to lunch day as guests. We had 29 prospective member guests last month. That was extraordinary. So I would urge each of you to continue to bring guests. I welcome all the guests that are here today. There were 3 guests at my table alone today. That speaks volumes of our club and volumes of each of you as members. Our best new member source is each of you. And now for the second item. We have a date for the upcoming Membership Committee networking and new member event. As you recall, last year there were 2 of these events during the year. One was hosted by Dominic Calabro at Tax Watch. It was an outstanding event. We have the date for this year's event. It is going to be September 28. That is a Thursday, and we are going to seek from the membership any of you that would like to host it at your organization. If you've got new office space and you want to show it off, if you're one of the universities, TCC perhaps, or FSU, if you have a space that you think would work out very well for us, we would love to use that for our networking event on September 28th. Thank you very much. Thank you, Marjorie.
Thank you, Lo. A number of you have asked how we identify and obtain our nationally noted speakers. It's thanks to you. So many of you have made recommendations on individuals you know or a topic that you're interested in hearing and an idea of someone to speak on that subject. So we're very definitely dependent on you and your contacts to let us know whom you want to hear. As a result, we have added a suggestion form to the website, so you will be able to go online, suggest a name, a topic, and these suggestions then are presented to the executive committee, which reviews them, so we have a good balance of subject matter and can plan, hopefully, the year ahead, and we will be starting that in August. Please note when you make the recommendations, or if you should contact someone to see if they're possibly interested, we are greatly dependent on the generosity of our speakers for coming and speaking without an honorarium. We do pay travel expenses, but we are so grateful for those who are willing. And actually, we do provide a significant forum in the 3rd largest state of the nation and its capital city. So please bring us your suggestions. I know many of you this year have given me names, possibly other members of the executive committee. It's probably like my nieces and nephews' birthdays that go in one ear and out the other, and I never can remember. And then I think, did I tell the staff about that person? So if you've mentioned a name and I haven't gotten back to you, it's not for lack of appreciation. It's probably for lack of memory. One last point. Stuart Graff, our speaker at the June meeting, who was director of the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, said a number of you came up to him and said you would be interested in visiting Taliesin West or East or one of the other locations, Frank Lloyd Wright locations. And he is offering to the members of the Economic Club a 15% reduction in membership of the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation if you're interested. And we will have more information on that, what the benefits are online. So look out for that. And now I'd like to introduce the head table. Please hold your applause until I have completed all the introductions. First, really needs no introduction, Dominic Calabro, President and CEO of both Florida Tax Watch for nearly 4 decades and the Davis Government Productivity Award for nearly 3 decades. He's past president and current chair of the club, as well as a sustaining member. Our speaker, Roger Dow, will be introduced in a moment by Dominic. And on my far right, your left, Carrie Post is the executive director of Visit Tallahassee, the destination marketing organization for Florida's capital region. Prior to joining Visit Tallahassee, she served as Deputy Secretary of State for the state of Florida and previously served as Vice President at Visit Florida for more than 11 years. She joined that organization shortly after it was created in 1996. And welcome to membership in the Economic Club, Carrie. Matt Ubben. Matt began service as Executive Director of the Florida Transportation Commission in August 2016, prior to his arrival in Tallahassee in 1997. Ubben spent more than a decade in public affairs positions in Washington, D.C., and is also a founder of the Confianza Consulting, Inc., a government and public relations consulting firm. Mike Siddick. When you say cities, you think of Siddick. He is a graduate of both TCC and FSU. He has worked for the Florida League of Cities for over 40 years and served as their executive director since 1995. Please give a round of applause for our head table. Now, Dominic, if you'll introduce our distinguished speaker.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I also want to recognize 2 new members as well, and I've had a little hand in it. So one is Jerry Thompson. Jerry, thank you very much. And really, it's David Fonville that actually locked and loaded that one, so thank you, David. And also, so I just saw it come in, His Honor, the former Mr. Secretary, and that's Ken Lawson, President and CEO of Visit Florida. Both a new member and a sustaining member, so thank you, Ken. Really very proud to introduce our speaker today. I know we've all just kind of recovering from a big holiday, which I think for many of us is really a sacred day in our nation's history and really throughout the entire world. But Roger Dow comes to us with an incredibly distinguished and highly successful career, both in business, worked his way up from the ground, literally the ground floor, all the way to the highest levels of corporate America with Marriott, and I'll tell you about that in a moment, as well as now as the President and CEO of U.S. Travel Association. Roger has 35 years with a little mom and pop called Marriott Corporation. First job was a lifeguard. This is the Florida, of course, but at the M6 Hotel. Later went on to work his way all the way up to become Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the company. And I think it's one area, by the way, just a little push. Hospitality, hotel management, restaurants and so forth is kind of one of the few areas where somebody who has a lot of spunk, energy, hard, industrious working person doesn't need even a bachelor's degree. We can really earn their way through good hard work, collaboration, and innovation can really rise to the top. So it's really one wonderful way to do that. Here's some of the things that Roger Dow has actually contributed that many of us enjoy. I didn't even know this myself. The first hotel that created the frequent traveler program and the rewards. Thank you, Roger. That's a pretty damn big contribution. In 2005, after moving up to Executive VP, Executive Vice President of Marriott, and helping make those important contributions there that we all benefit by, he became the President and CEO of U.S. Travel Association, and its mission is very simple. You'll hear a little bit more about it, but it's to increase travel to and within the United States. Very simple, very powerful, because travel not only enriches our life, which you'll see in a moment, but it also really, and most importantly for us, enriches the economy. He's a St. Petersburg resident. He's very engaged in Visit Florida's legislation. I can tell you that he was a champion, part of the bulwark of our team, and I think the CEO of Visit Florida would agree. I saw him at work. He worked hard, charmed, pushed it, whatever had to be done to get it done. So Roger's also a great member of the U.S. military. He served in Vietnam. He's a veteran and recipient of the Bronze Star. But most importantly, he's a friend of Dom, FOD. Roger Dow. Let's give him a warm, warm welcome.
Thank you. Well, you know, if I was really a friend of Dom, he would have invited me here on September 1st so I could go to the Alabama game. No, he brings me in the middle of summer. What the heck? Anyway, but yeah, it's 497 distinguished speakers. You're getting pretty close to the bottom of the barrel here, so I'll do what I can. So. But really appreciate being here. Thought rather than do a lot of talk and bore you to death, I'll show you a quick video of who we are as an industry and U.S. travel, but more important, what this industry does. And if you don't mind, Mike, if you'd roll the video. I'm not too AV tech, so Mike's here helping me out.
Travel creates lasting memories and American jobs. Travel strengthens family bonds and business relationships. Travel fuels better health and wellness and our economy. Because travel is so important to our country and our lives, we support travel.
The U.S. Travel Association is a leading advocate for increasing travel to and within the United States.
From hotels and transportation, to retail, dining, and small businesses, and from our national parks and natural wonders to our arts and entertainment. The U.S. travel industry is as diverse and dynamic as America itself. Our industry supports 15 million American jobs and generates $2.1 trillion for our economy.
We are the united voice of the industry, a voice that says that an efficient, modern travel system not only improves the travel experience, but also makes America more competitive worldwide. That welcoming a growing number of international visitors enhances our diplomacy and national security and boosts our economy. That businesses and workers find real bottom-line benefits when they meet face-to-face, and that every American deserves to experience the upside of downtime, to explore the benefits of taking time off. Our industry's voice is heard not only in everyday conversations, but throughout city halls, state houses, and the chambers of Congress.
On behalf of its members and the industry, U.S. Travel prioritizes high-impact national issues that matter most for travel. Serves as a leading expert on the industry, determining key opportunities and challenges ahead. U.S. Travel informs and engages the travel community in a coordinated manner to elevate our industry and ensure policymakers know that travel is more than just fun. It's serious business.
We proudly represent a sector that's essential to the American economy and an activity that's fundamental to businesses and individuals: travel. We'll get to that next, but But that's who we are as an industry, and up to those numbers. Last year we did $2.3 trillion, part of the U.S. economy, 15.3 million jobs. 1 in 9 Americans gets their job because of what someone in the travel industry does. 77 million international visitors. Those international visitors are our second largest export, bring $246 billion into the U.S. It's our #1 service export, and leading 25% of all export growth over the past 4 years has been travel. So it's extremely important. That's why I want to be here at the Economic Club, for folks that really understand what drives an economy. When I first started in this job, even though I headed up global sales and marketing for Marriott, I didn't even know this. Our industry had no respect whatsoever. I used to call us the Rodney Dangerfield of industries. And we worked very hard to get people to know. And the reason I finally figured it out is because people see us as frivolous. Everything we do in this industry is promoting people having a good time. You don't see an ad, whether it be for Tallahassee, whether it be for the beaches, whether it be for Orlando, without people having a good time, smiling. And so in Washington, they saw us as not serious, like manufacturing, healthcare, financial services. Yet we're bigger than most of those industries. And so it was so important. I've spent, as everyone knows, Ken Lawson and Dom and everyone knows, a lot of time here the past 6 months. And unfortunately, for some in Florida, a few, we are still the Rodney Dangerfield and get no respect for what this state, more than any state in the union, is where travel and tourism is so important. I always say we got to look beyond travel and tourism. It's nice that we got $2.3 trillion and 15.3 million employees, but I keep saying we're the front door to economic development, and especially in this state. And if you really take a look at it, let's talk about some things. Let's look at real estate. It all starts with someone buying real estate, whether from outside the country or for someone in Ohio or New York or Pennsylvania or wherever. It all starts with a visit, that they came here to Florida and they said, whoa, I'd like to buy a second home here. I'd like to retire here. I'd like to move here full time. Just from National Association of Realtors, $52 billion of international real estate was bought, our real estate is bought by international visitors, $52 billion. The average home that visitors buy is $477,000. 10% of those are over $1 million homes. 22% of all those purchases are here in Florida. So Florida gets over 1/5 of all the real estate purchases from all around the world come to Florida, from Latin America, UK, Europe, all around there, Canada, and you hear all those languages. Where I live in St. Petersburg, it all come around November, you start hearing all these different languages, around the different restaurants, et cetera. Domestically, think of all the second homes and retirement. How many of you may have come to Florida, first as a second home or a visit, whatever? I'm there. I came to the Super Bowl in 2009 and looked at St. Petersburg and said, wow, I'd like to live here. And that led my wife and I to move to Florida. When you think of agriculture, I've often talked to the Governor Scott, when he first came in, he said, wow, this is such a huge industry. He said, this and agriculture. And I said, Rick, if you take all the lettuce and the steaks that the tourists eat, it pumps us even higher. Think of how many, things that the tourists all eat. And when you look at it, we do 2.2 billion what we call person trips. In other words, that's you making one trip, you making 2.2 billion. And agritourism represents 7% of the total farm income here in Florida. So just visitors. So 7% of all agriculture comes as a result of visitors. Trade shows, when you think of it, when people meet and come to a trade show, a convention center, Orlando or something like that, face to face, and they see American products, that's when they buy American products. Consumer electronics, why do they buy Dell computers, Intel chips? Why do they buy Apple? Why do they buy John Deere and different heavy equipment from us? Because they're here at a trade show. When they go to a trade show outside the United States, they're not buying those brands. They're buying Mitsubishi, LG, Mercedes, et cetera, and we don't even get the business. So that's why it's so important to have the meetings convention. But take it other industries, restaurants. Restaurant Association was stunned to find out that 40%, they did some research a couple years ago, 40% of their white linen tablecloth, their nice restaurant revenue, comes from a traveler. And think of it, when you go somewhere on the trip, what's the first thing you do? You call one of your relatives or friends and say, I'm in town. You pick the place, I'll buy dinner. And 17%, this was a stunner for them, of fast food revenue. And when you think of it, you're driving, on the highways on a Saturday or Sunday. These people aren't going to work, but the McDonald's are packed, aren't they? So huge drive for restaurants. University. Look at Florida State. Look at the universities here. How many foreign students that come here and tuition that they spend to support sports, whether it be professional sports. You look at some of the spring training that is here in Florida, the various, the NCAA competitions, the football, finals that were here in Florida recently, the Super Bowl, all that. Even Broadway, we have a big event, and the head of Broadway's puts on 6 shows, 2 songs from each show every year for 6,000 people we have from around the world. I said, Charlie, I'm so glad you do that. He said, this isn't charity, Roger. He said, 40% of my tickets are bought by international visitors. 40% of Broadway tickets. He said, I'm doing this because it's business. Wine, think of all the wine. Retail. It's no accident that outlet malls are all located next to the big tourist and travel areas. Banking. How many people, when someone moves here, I've got a new bank account, a new mortgage, all the different things. Automobiles. I ended up buying 3 or 4 cars here in Florida, registering here in Florida. Materials, when a hotel goes up, think of all the beds, the TV sets, all the stuff and construction. Think of all the construction jobs when you build a hotel, a convention center, an attraction, all those people. Tampa Airport. Joe Lopano up there tells me he's got over 2,000 people working every day on the airport expansion. So this whole travel industry, I think we've got to look beyond just travel spend, but what it does is a front door to the economy. When as I say, I left Marriott, and I didn't even know when I got here the trouble we were in internationally is visitation. We call it the lost decade, but between 1995 and 2005, the United States lost 37% of its international market share. 37%. If any of you ran a company, an organization, and you were overseeing a loss of 37% of your market share, guess what? You might not be running that organization anymore. But yet we just let it happen. What happened? The rest of the world discovered this darling we call travel and tourism. The rest of the world started pumping tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into come to China, come to Thailand, come to the Caribbean, come to Mexico, and we were silent. The other thing that went on is after September 11th, we made it very hard to get a visa. If you were coming from Brazil, South America, India, China, it would take up to 130 days to get your 3-minute interview of can you come to Florida or not. 130 days you had to wait. Would you go anywhere if you had to wait 130 days to find out if France would let you go to France? No, you wouldn't. And the other thing that happened, we only had 27 visa waiver countries. These are the countries where you can come here with just your passport, and that's all the Western European countries, New Zealand, Australia, and Japan basically make them. And they hadn't added 1 visa waiver country since 1987. And so we started attacking that. So as a group, a whole industry working together, we got those visa wait times down to 2 days, sometimes same day. We got the 27 visa waiver countries up to 38, biggest being South Korea. When South Korea came into the visa waiver program, visitation to the United States from South Korea went from 450,000 to 800,000 in 1 year, up some 46% in just 1 year. Once we get visa waiver for Brazil, what it's going to do to Florida is going to be unbelievable. It will bring another, probably my guess is 1.5 million more visitors to Florida, and we're working on that very hard. And promotion, there was no promotion. Every other country, had $150, $180 million national government promotion effort. We had 0. So we were able to create something called Brand USA. A Floridian, Chris Thompson, who had to visit Florida, now heads up Brand USA. And now we have a $200 million fund, and not one of you pays 1 penny towards that fund. What ends up happening is visitors pay a small fee when they register to come to America every 2 years, and that funds it. But the only way the industry can get 1 penny out of it is if Ken puts money from Florida in to help, bring people from Germany, and they work together. So the industry, Marriott, everyone, Disney puts money into this fund so we got a $200 million fund. What are the results? 2009, we had 55 million international visitors. Last year, we had 77 million international visitors. Those international visitors stay 18 nights. That's why the industry loves them. They come here and they stay an average of 18 nights versus you and I stay somewhere 2 nights, 3 nights, and maximum on business trips and things like that. Each one of those people spend $4,400 per person when they come here. All you have to do is look at an international flight and stand at the airport and watch all the purchases and the bags and all the stuff that goes back, how much money they spend here. That equates, as I said, to $246 billion spending here. And a little stealth thing, and I've always said this to the State Department, I said, this is your stealth public diplomacy. These people come here, and our research says when they go back home, they're 72% more likely to be very favorable of American and American policies versus 21% of people who've never been here. So I keep saying to the Secretary of State, I said, what's it worth to have another 10 million people coming here and going home somewhere and saying, you know, they're really nice people. Wow, I really like those Americans. Not like I read in the news. How important is that? I think it's very important. Well, I want to drill down a little bit to Florida. I've talked national numbers. Let's talk about Florida here. As Dom said, I've spent a lot of time here in the past few months because Visit Florida, if you've been watching it, the Visit Florida is $76 million, okay? And then it was going to go to zero. And the legislature said, we're going to take it down to zero. Then it was creeping back up to $25 million, and then last minute, Rick Scott, and he got to tell the governor what a great job he did, Rick Scott would not give up until it became $76 million once again, because it does a lot of things and to bring business here to Florida. Let me explain, first of all, you take the top 50 brands, corporate brands in the United States, they spend $81 billion to fund and promote and market their brands. The top 50 states, Florida being one of them, and California, the big share, but only spend $437 million. All the 50 states spend that. That's less than 0.5% of what the top 50 brands spend. I'll take Mars Candy. Mars Candy is the number 50th U.S. company in sales. They do $33 billion in sales. What do they spend? $827 million in promotion on M&Ms and stuff like that. Twice what we spend on tourism for a budget just for Florida alone. That's $113 billion. So your Florida tourism is 3 times bigger than all the M&Ms all around the world. So so this promotion is so important. And promotion really works. And there's some examples that we use in talking through this. The state of Michigan decided in 2010 that they're going to really create a brand called Pure Michigan. And they took their spending from $10 million to $33 million, a $23 million increase. What happened? Over the next 4 or 5 years, tourism went from $18 billion to $23 billion. $5 billion just spending $23 million. So it shows the multiple of what can happen. New Mexico in 200 was seen as nobody wanted to go to New Mexico, and they started talking about the land of enchantment, the land of great things to go to. 2012, they spent $1.2 million, little budget, and they got 264,000 more trips. So they upped that to $2.5 million. Next year, they got 890,000 more trips to New Mexico. Their legislation has now said, let's make it 9.6 million. So they're seeing the cause and the effect, and they're saying, we're going to start promoting travel and tourism. What happens when you go the other way? Colorado in 1993 said everybody knows about Colorado. The ski industry done a wonderful job promoting Colorado, and they just cut out their state tourism office, just cut it out. And they were able to, they saved themselves in that whole thing, they saved about, I think, $20 million. Well, by 1997, Colorado lost 30% of their market share of their leisure visitors. Their annual visitor spend went down $2.4 billion. Their tax receipts went down $134 million, but they saved $20 million. They finally said, we got to get over this. So in 2000, they put in $5 million to promote. Then they raised it in 2006 to $18.5 million. Travel spend has now gone back up 74%. Just last year, Colorado got back to where they were when they cut out promotion of tourism. Pennsylvania, brilliant folks in Pennsylvania. In 2000, they said, we're going to reduce the state tourism budget from $30 million to $7 million. They saved themselves $23 million. In the process, they lost $83 million in tax revenue. And so they lost over $60 million. That experiment didn't work. So that's why I think it's so important. If you haven't seen this Tax Watch, I really applaud. Your group does a great job. I first met Dom and looking at Florida tourism in Florida and Miami and all that, and I was very intrigued. But when they came out and saw this happen, came out with this report on the show may not go on, and it was talking about Visit Florida being unfunded and what it could mean. And when you look at it, in 2004 to 2009, Visit Florida, was stuck. They were stuck at they had $26 million. It didn't change. Actually, Jeb Bush came in and put the budget in to recover after, September 11th to save the travel industry. And so it was about $26 million, 2004 to 2009. And during that time, for 6 years, the state of Florida was stuck at 81, 80, 82, 80, 83. They couldn't get over 83 million visitors for 6 years, spending $26 million. Governor Scott came in and said, I'm going to start increasing this. This is because as tourism goes the state of Florida. And he started pushing up the budget to, 50 million, 76 million now. So when that happened, so what's happened is every year that the state increased its spending, travel and tourism revenue in Florida went up 6%. It goes up about 2.5% nationally. So Florida, with this extra spending, was literally doing 3x more in growth than any state in the country. Visitors went from that stagnant 80 million to 112 million in 2016. Now travel and tourism is the largest industry, spending this is all Don's, thank you, Don, for all this facts here, $113 billion in revenue. 1.4 million Floridians get their job. Now, I told you before, 1 in 9 U.S. citizens get their job. Florida, it's about 1 in 7. So 1 in 7 of your neighbors, you've got 7 neighbors, one of them is getting their job because of travel and tourism. Without travel and tourism, every household in Florida would have to pay another $1,535 in taxes, in some way raise taxes to keep the services just at the same level they are. So as I said, it's gone up 6% every year. Had the draconian cut come to take it down to 25 million or 0 million, who can argue with the fact if you start spending money, it goes up 6% every year. If you stop spending money or take it down by 50 million, it's not going to have any effect? Just a 5% loss. If Visitation Florida had just goes backwards 5%, what does it mean? It means a loss of 67,000 jobs, $5 billion in revenue for the state, and $509 million. So think of that, $509 million in tax revenue. Who's going to pay the teachers, the firemen, policemen, and all that? So this is why it's so important, and that's state and local tax. And what happened is this got caught up in personal politics. It got caught up in personal politics, and what ended up happening is people weren't looking what was the good of the state, but what was good for a personal reputation. And I have to applaud Ken, I have to applaud Rick Scott, because he didn't give up. I mean, Rick Scott, when it went down to 0, he said, it's not over yet. When it went to 25 million, he said, it's not over yet. And last minute, they worked out a compromise to get it to 76 million. And I'm stunned, because I watch this from a national basis. I'm just stunned to see a state like Florida play Russian roulette with the economy and with jobs in that nature. Just stunned that was even an issue. So what happened? So Rick Scott comes in, he starts raising tourism spending. California had the highest at 50 million. When Florida went to 50 million, California says, oh my gosh. Governor of California raised theirs to 75 million. Florida went to 76 million. California went to 110 million. So now you're sitting there. Now California, they should give a poster to the Florida residents for building their tourism fund, because they now have 110 million. And what do they want to do with 110 million? They want to take the people from Disney World to Disneyland. They want to take the people off the beaches of Florida to the beaches of California. And now they've got all this money to do this. And if you had gotten out of the game, I mean, I'm telling you that I deal with all the states. Everyone in Georgia, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, California, the Carolinas were rooting for you. They're saying, come on, take their money, because they knew as soon as that money went that they were going to come after the tourists that build this economy here in Florida. So fortunately that didn't happen. And I heard it said, well, people, they know about Florida. They'll still come here because of our great beaches. Guess what? Other people have beaches, not only in the United States, but all around the world. So this is why this is so important, why I'm so passionate about it, because, especially what you showed, Don, there's just a clear, absolutely irrefutable line between promoting the state and bring more economy, more jobs, more factories, everything coming to Florida. So I'm going to switch gears now. I want to talk about something going on in the United States, and then I'll wrap it up with that. And it's what's happened is we're becoming a no-vacation nation. And when I looked at it, Willie Sutton used to say the reason they robs banks is because that's where the money is. Well, when you look at travel industry, 2/3 of all the revenue from travel is leisure travel. So we started looking at leisure travel, and it turns out in 2000, we, all of us, took 20.2 days of vacation in the country. 2014, that had dropped to 16 days. We gave up 4.2 days in that very short period, in 14 years, as a country. And we became, as I said, the no vacation nation. What did that change add up to? It was 662 million days of people not taking, days that were paid for. They never took. And we asked why, and we found out we were building a nation of work martyrs. Of folks, number one, 43% say the reason I don't take vacation is real simple. They've shrunk the staff we have, and the bottom line, I don't want to go on vacation because I have to work 3 days as hard before I go to get ahead, and then when I come back, I got to work 3 days twice as hard to catch up for what I missed. It's just not worth it. The other 34% said nobody can do my job. When I leave, all sorts of things that doesn't happen. We were just talking about, Marjorie and I, when you go away, when your team has the authority to do what they can do, better things even happen. But there's a group of people think, when I stop, nothing else happens. So that's $201 million of forfeited money. These are, a lot of companies have use it or lose it policies. $201 billion are lost and never paid for, never used. Here's the other one, on corporate balance sheets. You and economists should understand this. $272 billion is carried by companies in the United States carrying their vacation liability because they have to carry it as an expense forward and forward. So what if we could free up $272 billion the U.S. companies are sitting on their books for people who haven't taken their vacation? Well, we're trying to figure out how to change this. And I just couldn't figure out how to get at it. Then it finally hit me. We got to do what our grandmothers taught us. We got to use guilt. And if we could use some guilt, we could change this. So Mike, if you don't mind, if you could hit this, and I hope we can make you all feel real guilty and you'll take some more vacation.
This year, you won't be at your best friend's side when she gets married, but you will have the most unused vacation days in the office. You won't see her first steps, but you will memorize every foot of your commute. You won't read that book from the back of this boat because you're reading this presentation from the back of this conference room. And the only anniversary you'll take time to celebrate this year will be held in the break room. She'll still get married. She will still learn to walk. That boat will still set sail. If you don't take time off, the only thing missing will be you. But it doesn't have to be that way. Explore the upside of downtime. Fall in love or jump into the heart of the action. Because when you're there, you can make a lasting memory or be part of a last memory. Time off may give you a sense of perspective or a sense of adventure or just a chance to slow down and connect. But no matter how you spend the time or the feeling it evokes, we all get to what's important the same way, by taking time off. We've become a nation of work martyrs, letting vacation days go to waste while we waste away at the office. It's time for a change. Project Time Off is a national movement to shift culture so that using personal time off is not considered frivolous, but essential to strengthening families and improving personal health. A business investment with proven returns and an economic necessity. Join the movement. Take a day. See what you're missing.
Thank you. And I saw a lot of people saw themselves there. But I think this is so important that, and we've been at this for about 3 years, banging away at corporations, because not only does it help the travel industry, but think of retail, cars, automobiles, gas, restaurants, sports, everything go up when people take their time off. I'm glad to report last year, 2016, U.S. took 16.8 days. That's only 0.8 of a day, but those 0.8 of a days added $50 billion to the economy. So I encourage you, all take your time off, but more important, I encourage you, those that you understand numbers and finances, be very clear with your legislature, grow Florida vacations, grow Florida travel, and you grow the Florida economy and jobs. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Can you take questions? Roger, we'll take some questions now, and I would ask that only members of the club invite or ask questions, and that includes our student members. There is a microphone here, and I would ask that you use the microphone so everyone can share in your incisive question.
Well, ma'am, I don't have a question. I have remarks to make real quick. As the head of Visit Florida...
You don't need a microphone.
I'm loud, obnoxious, but as the head of Visit Florida, I have to thank Roger Dow and the U.S. Travel Association for staying by us. Next to the governor, Roger and his team came to Florida, met with the legislature, and led a national movement to show how important tourism is to Florida and educate our legislators. So Roger, on behalf of my organization, thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
As you're well aware, there's a big push by some candidates for office to raise the minimum wage.
Right.
And I would assume that the hospitality industry, the hotels, restaurants, theme parks employ a lot of minimum wage employees. So my thought is, you know, I would think that if the minimum wage raises to $15 an hour, that their operating costs would increase so much that they would have to raise their prices. And that would hurt our industry. Do you have any comment on that?
Sure I do. Minimum wage, I earned minimum wage when it was $3.40 an hour, but when I worked at McDonald's when I was in high school, and so many of these minimum wage jobs are beginning jobs. It's a job where you get in, you begin to learn a skill, and you move on. I can give you an example of what's going on. The state of Washington has put in the minimum wage of $15, okay? And they've just now begun looking in the state of Washington, their treasurer's office, it's not any political thing, looked at it and said they're losing jobs. They're losing jobs in Washington very rapidly because what's happening is, and it was really ticked off are the waiters and waitresses, because the waiters and waitresses are now put on a salary. So the waiter and waitress that was making $60 an hour at a nice restaurant is now making $30 an hour, and they're really ticked. The actual household income has actually gone down. It sounds very good. I think we've got to get, I'd rather see more money put in training and development and opportunity for people, but that minimum wage causes the person that has the little, let's say the little tour company that has kayaks in here and they've got 4 employees, and when they have to, and the employees get a wage plus tips, when they go up to 15, that means their wife and that person are working and they're letting one person off. The other thing they found in Seattle is people are cutting hours. So employers are going to them, you used to work 40 hours a week, but I can only afford to pay you 30. So the employers are finding a way to stick with the cost. So it's it sounds great. And I think everyone, our wage should go up. And the last I'll say is this industry, everyone says they're the low-paying jobs. You know, there were hamburger flippers and ticket takers. I flipped a hamburger, took a ticket in my life, but everyone in our industry is no longer flipping hamburgers. I think minimum wage is very important because so many young people, so many people get a start in a career, then they can grow. And I think training and growing people to be able to do more important is just more important. And we're watching this happen. And you can just look at the Washington statistics right now, and it's having the inverse effect. And the people who are trying to help the most are actually getting hurt. Yes.
How are you, sir? I'm Mary Biankowski, and I have lots of professions, but one of the things that I care most about is people and changing lives. And what a marvelous presentation, and that Project Time Off. I'm wondering why you don't have it on every station as a required in-film ad in the middle of news programs, because honestly, guilt is a useful emotion. I have Jewish colleagues who tell me guilt works, okay? So let's play that one, but let me try guilt on you.
Okay.
The state of Florida, out of tax revenues, is paying $76 million to promote Florida tourism.
Yes.
Is that matched by Disney World and all the firms that are getting this money that are profiting from the extraordinary, I mean,
yes.
I think Visit Florida is one of the most successful marketing firms in the world. But I also see that teachers are getting paid too little. I also see that we have a constitutional amendment on pre-K, and yet we still don't have quality pre-K. I see that Leon County has one school that has a D, and we have many of them with C's, and part of it is lack of resources. So that $76 million might have been more beneficial to go to pre-K. And just one more question.
Sure.
I loved Emily's question, and I loved your answer. But I would say this, minimum wage is great for kids that have both parents. They're going to school, they're working at McDonald's or some other Barnaby's Pizza, and the minimum wage is kind of like an opportunity for them because they're getting training in terms of, but for God's sakes, if you're 45 years old and you've lost your job and the only thing that's open to you is a minimum wage job, you can't go on vacation. You can barely afford one job. So I would love us to think more broadly that if we were paying a decent salary to people who are over 25, if we were providing scholarships to the human beings who at the age of, let's say, 12 to 17 made a poor decision and committed a felony, and in the state of Florida, those kids are not ever allowed to get bright futures and have a felony. My God, their brains aren't developed until 25. So I would love to see your organization market opportunity, not just to travel, but for scholarships, for pre-K, and to get the firms that are benefiting from this tourism marketing that's exquisite, get them to help pay more so that the taxpayers can start funding important projects that make a difference in people's lives.
Okay, thanks for that question. I think several things. You mentioned $76 million spent by the state. It is matched, by the way, more than matched. But that $76 million, if, as I said earlier, if it just goes down 5%, in other words, you've watched it grow 6% a year as you increase that money. If it goes down 5%, you lose $500 million in tax revenue. So the teachers, the firemen, the salaries they'll get are going to go down by $500 million with just a 5% loss. So that's it's one of these things. I think in government we have to understand what are the things that fuel the economy and what are the things that are high bureaucratic cost. And I think we've got to be able to look at the difference and find the things that can grow the economy. Travel and tourism is one of the few areas that you can come in at that minimum wage. And I agree with you. We've got to find a way to help the adults who lose their jobs, but think it out in a way that it doesn't cost jobs. And so it's a very complex issue, but the bottom line, if you look at the travel industry, we did a study and we looked at careers because I was sick and tired of hearing hamburger flippers and low-paying jobs. And so we took the Department of Labor Statistics and hired a research firm to look at 40 years of data. And people who started in the travel industry and spent at least 2 years in the travel industry or their career are making more than every single industry, manufacturing, healthcare, all these things, except for financial services that make 0.5% more in a career. If you look at African Americans, you look at Hispanics, you look at women, and in travel and tourism, they make about 15% more in a career than folks in other industries that are African Americans. So it's a complex issue, but I think the thing is opportunity, and what happens is when Florida goes up, when Disney has more people coming in the gate, then they have to hire more people. When less people come in the gate, they have to lay off some people. And the challenge is, when that happens, the first people to go are the people who need the jobs the most, the underemployed. The bellmen, the kitchen, the housekeepers, they're the ones that go first. So I think the answer is to try and build this economy and find ways to train and develop and help people move up that scale. And it's just, the facts are there. Yes, sir.
What lessons were learned from the pit bull affair?
Pit bull, a lot of lessons were learned. I think, hindsight is very good. If you can look backwards, man, I'm an expert on about everything. But when you look at pit bull, a couple of things went wrong. One is pit bulls was, I call it a 305 plan. So if you're in South Beach, Miami, it's the greatest thing in the world. Pit bull may not play as well in Central Florida or the Panhandle, and absolutely does not. So perhaps even one lesson is make sure someone you bring in has the demographics of the state. Second thing is all entertainers. If you hire a speaker and entertainer, in their contract is you will not disclose what you're paying them. That's because when they go from here to California, they want to get more. So they don't want anyone to know what they made the deal here for. So that was in the contract. I think the mistake that was made is when they start pushing to say, tell us what's in the contract. If I were sitting there, and again, hindsight's great, I would have said, I am sorry, but we paid him $1 million, and that's it. Because what happened is they went to Pitbull, and he said, they gave me $1 million. What's the big deal? So I think there's ties there. So I think the mistakes were looking at a entertainer that may not have had the broad appeal, not understanding what could have happened in pushback, and then hunkering down and saying, legally, we can't give away the contract, and then Pitbull said, yeah, it's $1 million. And so I think those three things put together. So I think transparency, which Ken is working on something fierce, and I think transparency is extremely important. So everyone knows where those dollars of the state of Florida are going, how they're spent, and how they can best, and having dialogue of where they can best spend. But several, as I look at Pitbull, it's, as I say, easy looking backwards.
We'll take one more question.
Excellent. I'm last up. I'm Jerry Parrish. I'm the chief economist of the Florida Chamber Foundation. Used to be the chief economist of Florida Tax Watch, so you see a couple of my reports that I wrote on the back of that Tax Watch paper in the old days. There's a couple things that, when we talk about tourism marketing, and that people don't really understand. They think, well, maybe we are taking money from something else we could be doing. Never forget two things about this. One is we spend $76 million this year. That supports this income stream to the state of $11.3 billion in taxes. Out of that $11.3 billion, it's about $6 billion to the state, about $5.3 billion to local governments. That is paying for education. That is paying for health care. But one of the things in my research I found that was the most important thing of this travel industry, and while I'm here, I want to thank Ken Lawson. I saw him fighting for this. I saw Roger Dow fighting for this during the legislative session. We wrote a report about getting Florida's jobs, our workforce ready for the year 2030. This industry trains more people in soft skills than any other industries and all other industries combined. That is the biggest need for Florida businesses right now. So Roger's groups came out with a report, 2 out of 5 people that start out their career in hospitality end up making 6 figures. It's true. There's a lot of great training that goes on here that nobody puts on their books. That goes with that person their whole life. That is absolutely, if you take out a couple of hard skill things like cybersecurity, CNC machining, and a couple of items like that, the biggest need overall is soft skills, and I want to guarantee you the Florida hospitality industry trains more people in that than anybody across this country. So thank you, Roger. Thank you, Ken. And Jerry.
And thank you. And I'm going to give one closing comment on what he just said. Number one, the media, if you read it, says, hey, Visit Florida is there to pad Disney or Universal's pockets. Actually, Disney Universal does not really need Visit Florida. Yeah, it'll be a little hiccup for them. They'll lose some business. The people who need it are the small businesses. The people that need it are the counties, all the counties that are not Orlando and aren't Miami, aren't Tampa, but the smaller counties. 85% of all tourism jobs are small business. These are the people that Visit Florida levels the playing field for. It allows them to market in London, where in a million years they couldn't market. Disney, it's a throwaway. They can market London anywhere in the world they want. So the misnomer is Visit Florida is there for Disney. Disney can do without it. They don't want to because it helps them. But the bottom line is the small businesses, the people who need the jobs in the business most, that's who it benefits. Thank you very much.
Roger, thank you so much. And as a token of our appreciation, we want to present you with this limited edition Bronze Eagle by a noted national but local Sculptor Stanley Proctor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, this is beautiful. Usually when I make a speech, I get some lousy piece of glass with their name all over it. This is something I will keep. I like this. Thank you.
See you all August 17th. Thank you.
You've been listening to a delayed broadcast of the Economic Club of Florida luncheon meeting of July 7th, 2017. This program featured a talk by Roger Dow, President and CEO of the U.S. Travel Association. That presentation included an overview of the impact of tourism on the United States and the state of Florida. This program was recorded at the Florida State University Alumni Center in Tallahassee. Join us again next time for another Economic Club of Florida luncheon meeting on WFSU-FM.